This is Boston Red on the 24th of August, 2014. We look at today what will happen if the grand jury does not indict Officer Wilson. Now, procedurally, in most jurisdictions, a prosecutor can opt some there are two and some there are three, but basically speaking, he can just simply, or she just simply charge the individual with a crime and go to a preliminary hearing. Now, they did that in the case of Orenthal James Simpson. Or they can go to a grand jury indictment and the prosecutor leads the grand jury. It's kind of confusing because grand jury is impaneled, as in this particular grand jury, hearing many different cases. They're in panels, say, for 3 weeks or whatever. And the present grand jury was already in session there in St. Louis. So they will preside over this, and the prosecutor has said that it could take up to October. Now, this is where the whole situation gets to be very, very interesting. First of all, you have supporters of Wilson, the officer, that's actually outraised the supporters of the Brown family in terms of money, but this is to be expected. So you have two sides of the coin here, and those are polarized. The gang that is supporting Wilson is basically hardcore police types. Some of the oath takers, that's one particular branch of people there. An officer with it was suspended for his actions, telling people, I'm a killer. Now, one has to understand that these statements by various people are just those statements by various people, but they are acted out in real life. And the incident with this officer and the incident with another officer that told a reporter he would kill him are real life indications. What has basically happened here is that these people have decided that they take views, as in the oath keepers, and this guy's name is Page, and you've seen him pushing the CNN reporter, the House reporter, Don Lemon, back onto or off the sidewalk, whichever direction it goes. His name is Dan Page. And this, he made a YouTube before this Oath Takers organization. Is an organization of right-wing military types, former police officers, and various other types that have sworn oaths. Now, the issue is to whom they've sworn these oaths. They would say they are constitutional, but in effect, they're oaths that are sworn to white supremacy. I'll just read here. I personally believe in Jesus Christ as my Savior. Here, a lot of these characters do that. It was an old Klan statement. But I'm also a killer. I have killed a lot. If you need to, I can kill a whole bunch more. If you don't want to get killed, don't show up in front of my face. It's that simple, Page said in an hour-long presentation, which also included incendiary comments about various minority groups, women's, liberals, and politicians. Now, because of the polarization presented by the party of the political officio, I guess we'll call him that, over the years since the silent majority that Nixon had and into the Reagan administration, Pat Buchanan, that has polarized the nation into a divide. And one what has to understand about these various right-wing forces, whether it be the Oath Keepers, the white supremacists, etc., They just simply believe what they believe. And one of the chiefs involved here, I think Bill Maher, wife wrote that these people were animals. His son had the Confederate flag. And of course now you'll hear that he was marching with the state patrol leader, Officer Johnson, and Dobson, it's the chief in St. Louis, hand in hand, carrying an NAACP banner. And this just shows how things can be projected out there. And he's passing out bottled water, you can believe that, and hugging people, and at the same time his forces were literally handcuffing people, gassing people. And this is all that results from presentation, how the media presents something. And I noticed some comments on Facebook were talking about the Nation of Islam. You heard from Minister Louis Farrakhan on our last presentation on the week that was, talking about the Michael Brown incident. It's a very complicated incident, and he related a conversation he had with some police officers, African Americans, that wanted to take a stand. He explained to them they're under a broader umbrella, the Fraternal Order of Police. So if they jump outside of that, they become ineffective. Is that a case of Tommy? Is that not a case of Tommy? What basically happens here, there is no black and white in a moving situation. But what can happen in media, you have this Dan fellow here, what was his name? Old Dan, anyway. There's so many of these characters. Page. You have old Page, he's been there 35 years. He's had these particular views, and the environment fostered those. Studies have shown, and anecdotal information, in police departments, the people they recruit follow the chief. And we can example that, Chief Parker, out in L.A., the late Parker. They named Parker Center after the old S.O.B. Nonetheless, and they had Gates, another rabid right-wing fanatic. So they had the famous chokeholds, and they were one of the first to be a paramilitary organization. They had SWAT teams, etc. We'll get to that in a minute. But these are just some of the arsenal that these people actually had and were presenting to the public. And the public, by and large, unless they were the ones that had the chokeholds or killed, stood by and said very little. Now, the case of Michael Brown is a different case. It's even brought about a review by President Obama on the militarization of police, the surplus military hardware that's given to police after World Trades. And World Trades is one of these situations that it was a very emotional event. People had very little information other than they saw some buildings go down. Then they had another group of people that were scientists for truth. Not sure. You'd be very careful when they say the word truth. They pretty much got infiltrated and fallen apart. But the vestiges of that stay with us. I can recall one of the actors, I believe it was Danny Glover, that said it was a one-day story, basically on a national scene. But what happened was they were able to generate this through the propaganda machine and turn it into more than a one-year day story. Because in New York, the fact of the matter was, if you did not live in the area around World Trades, the way the neighborhoods were set up, if you didn't see it on TV, it really didn't affect your life unless you were going in that direction on the subway. If you were in neighborhoods over in Brooklyn or in Queens or in the Bronx, it did not affect you. Now, nationally, you had a national audience, and you had people that were conditioned by the media to fear that they were coming to get us any day, so to speak, that kind of thing. So what happened was they were able to militarize these police forces without thinking of what was going on. I can recall seeing in some cities they had literally police officers standing outside of the town inspecting trucks. Of course, they found nothing. And this whole hysteria there, they've had a number of quote-unquote little cases of people. They had some people in Florida that were going to blow up the Sears Tower, but they had no explosives. They had no money. They even had the money to get to Chicago. But those kind of cases were thrown out there, and these people ended up going to prison because of quote-unquote an informant that set them up. And that's happened in case after case. Now, you had the famous underwear bum. I'm not sure what that story was there, what he was actually capable of doing or not doing. Evidently, a young man, finance minister there in Nigeria, was brainwashed by some group. And that's what happens to a lot of these characters. There are known brainwashing techniques that take place. Now, the Islamic ISIS, the charge is made, you hear it around the net, that the leadership, Abu Bakr, whatever the rest of his name there is, had been trained by the Mossad. Now, can we verify that? No, Baghdadi is the rest of his name. Anyway, can we verify that? No, but part of the problem you have with any of these groups, many of these people have been in different organizations, and some elements of those organizations, if not the whole organization, were trained by various security forces, and some of them knew who they were being trained by, and others did not. So the old provocateur goes there, and thus you have a group showing up, and now you tend to push your policy, as they did with 9/11, to militarize all these police units across America. And you have people like this Dan Page in there, and he's been there for 35 years. But yet also you have many of the younger ones. It's sort of what happened with the military, as you had evangelicals and various right-wing Christian types, most of them from working class strata, went into the military. And those people were already far right. Many of them, probably 20%, more than that, are white supremacists. But yet they had this lucrative, at one time, job when they could not find another job. They go off to Baghdad or to Kabul and kill some people through the night, etc. And a lot of them have finished up, quote-unquote, their service. It's debatable if that service was to their country or not. But the whole point there is, and they have returned. Some have been able to be integrated back into the quote-unquote system. Some have not. And others, there was a woman on Facebook. In fact, she's on our page. It just disappeared. But evidently what she was doing was traveling around with her son-in-law, and he was in the Air Force, and spewing out right-wing propaganda. As a lot of the Tea Party types, they were living off the faith and credit of the people of the United States, who fund those military operations, who also fund these police departments, like where old Page was. Now he's just on suspension. He should be kicked out because he was too stupid to understand you don't mess around with organizations like CNN. Don Lemon may be the house man, but he's on Turner's plantation, as one would say, and Turner has a few $1 billion. So this whole thing comes down to another situation. Then you have this guy, John Belmar, saying that there was obviously something that was deeply disturbed me. He's with the St. Louis County, and this is a page was, police. And they have been ripened with these kinds of statements. But these statements have been fostered, and they continue on. The police department in Glendale, Missouri, announced a statement that it had suspended Officer Pepera due to severe, very concerning and inappropriate posts on his personal Facebook page. And he said, "I'm sick of these protesters." One of the posts said, "You are a burden on society, blight on the community." The snapshots of An appropriately deactivated account had been obtained by the Daily Caller. Daily Caller is a right-wing site. These protesters